Hello, everyone. So last week I introduced some marketing concepts. I think I talked a little bit about the four Ps. And so we're going to take this week to delve into strategic marketing because we can't talk about strategy and strategic planning without taking some time to understand the marketing function and the critical role it plays in success of organizations. So this week I want to be sure that we cover several objectives, and we'll address all of these in this slide deck here. We'll talk about the relationship between marketing and strategic planning. We'll go over the four Ps, and we'll also identify some of the key areas of the marketing function. We'll talk about strategic partnerships and explore how quality and transparency are influencing the marketing agenda, particularly for hospitals and health systems. We'll go into some crises management and PR issues, and I have the case for you for that piece. And then we'll talk finally about the product lifecycle and its influence on marketing. So just like I gave you several definitions of strategic planning, I'm going to give you several definitions of marketing. These are three that are most commonly found in the literature. The first is a process of planning and executing the conception, the pricing, the promotion, and the distribution of ideas and goods and services to create exchanges. That's a really important, that's an operative word there. We're creating exchanges to satisfy individual and organizational objectives. The second definition defines marketing as a process that identifies or anticipates and supplies customer requirements efficiently and profitably. And then the third definition, Kotler defines it as a social and a managerial process by which individuals and groups obtain what they need and want by creating and exchanging, again, there's that word, products and value with others. So it's important to recognize that marketing is a process. We're talking about exchanging a good or a service. So it's something that you're paying for. It's transactional, right? And it's important to not be restricted in our thinking and associate marketing with just sales or advertising. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. So the benefits of marketing, of course, we're talking about building awareness, enhancing the visibility of your organization. Of course, we're always trying to improve market share. We want folks to have a certain type of association and loyalty with our organizations, and the marketing function is important, critical to accomplishing that. Attracting employees and staff, that's important. You know, a lot of folks will see organizations and how they're portrayed in the media or how they're perceived, and they have this aspiration to work there. I always think about the Mayo Clinic, for example, in healthcare. You know, folks just really think that's a great place to work, and they do some really innovative stuff there, and it's perceived as, it's a good perception, right? And of course, high quality health services. So strategic planning and marketing are interdependent. I can't say that enough. You need marketing in order to inform your strategic planning, and you need the planning to inform marketing, and so forth. So on the left-hand side here, through market research, you understand the needs and the desires of the consumer. This is important for strategic planning. So market research is when you actually know your population, right? You know what they think about your organization. You know what's important to them, right? And you know what they're looking for in a health provider. So that's what market research gives you. And that's going to inform your strategic planning process. You have to know your people, right? So you can develop products and services that are customized to your target population. And then after the strategic plan is complete, the marketing function promotes relevant aspects of the plan in a way that appeals to the consumer. So once you have your strategic plan done, and you have some metrics, and you're trying to improve market share, you're trying to promote a new service, you need to know how to access your consumer, and how to communicate it in a way that speaks to them, that they can resonate with. And that's what the marketing function does. So they're interdependent. And a lot of times when you look at really large, like corporate org structures, you'll see a marketing director or marketing VP and his or her strategic planning VP or director counterpart reporting to an executive vice president. They typically fall under the same section on the org chart because it's important that they work closely together. You can't take any type of marketing class without the 4 Ps and knowing what they are. This is classic marketing 101, the 4 Ps: product, price, promotion, and place. And so this image here gives you a little more detail around when we talk about price, what are we talking about? How much does it cost? How much does the cost that you're offering compare to your competitors? What are different ways that I can pay for it? Is it bundled? That's important, and that's what you need to communicate in your marketing strategy. And then place, how do I access the service? How are you communicating the information to me? Where am I getting it from? And how are the services distributed? Promotion, advertising through your sales, through publicity, through sales tactics and promotion tactics. And then product, what is it that you're offering, right? It's like, I probably should have started with the product first. But what is it? How functional is it? How does it fit into my life, my lifestyle, what's important to me? What about your brand and what's the recognition there? And then how is it packaged? And then what are the different types of services that you're offering as far as the product? And again, how does it benefit me? So these are the 4 Ps. And as we think about marketing, if you have a product or service that you are taking to that you're promoting, right, that you want to get out into the universe, you have to think about it within these contexts, and you have to communicate it in a way that resonates to your consumer. But you can't do that without knowing your consumer, and that's why market research is so important. Marketing is versus sales. I want to be sure that we can respect the difference here. Marketing is not selling, all right? Selling is a component of the marketing function, but sometimes people just associate marketing with selling. It's so much more than that. Marketing is everything the organization does to reach and persuade prospects. So it's very comprehensive, and I would encourage you to go back to that first or second slide that I shared with you that spoke to the 3 definitions of marketing. The third bullet, the sales process is everything the organization does to close the sale and get a signed agreement. So that's sales. And you have an expert, right? You have a salesman when you're thinking about purchasing a car. That person, when you drive up to that car dealership and that person, is magnetically attracted to you as soon as you pull up, that's a salesperson. And that's a person who has been trained to speak to the vehicle and how that vehicle will meet your needs and how it's better than the competitors. That's sales. Advertising is different, so just because I'm good at sales doesn't mean that I'm good at advertising. So advertising is a component of the marketing process, and it's really just, getting the word out. It could be newspaper ads, it could be some social media. There are different vehicles for advertising products or services. And then the last bullet, the marketing function includes experts in market research. It includes experts in sales, advertising, community relations, and so forth. So when you look at a marketing, like an org structure of a large corporation or entity, you'll see that you have public relations experts, and the PR people are the people who, they write speeches, or if there's some type of catastrophic event, you have a PR person who will communicate that to the general population, or they may write a speech. Government affairs, these are people who work closely with the government or policymakers to make sure that they are aware of all of the services that are being offered and how it's benefiting the community. This is extremely important when we're talking about not-for-profit organizations, right? Because you always want people to know how you are providing some type of charitable service that's really impacting your community in a favorable way. Community outreach, these are folks who actually are, the face of the organization in the community. So these are your representatives who are providing some type of service. It could just be education, or it could be some health education. And it's important that your community outreach people are good ambassadors for your organization, meaning that they clearly represent the organization's values. So you don't just put anybody in the community. You really have to make sure that they are representing you well. And advertising, I spoke to that already. Internal and external communications. Again, for large organizations, you'll have an internal communications person, and that's a person who's marketing to the internal, to the customers, not the customers, excuse me, the employees of that organization. To be sure that the employees are aware of all of the service offerings, and particularly how those offerings may benefit the employees themselves. And then external communications, this would be your communication vehicles for promoting your goods and services to the community or whatever geography it is that you are appealing to. Social or e-commerce, we're seeing a lot more of these positions in organizations. These are folks who are specifically, they're working on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and addressing complaints through these vehicles too, because people can say whatever they want to say on social media, and it's important for us to be on top of that. So these are people who are experts in that, and they push out information to keep folks engaged and aware of what the organization is offering, and they also address issues when they see something that's really bad and can really impact how people perceive that organization. I've known several people who've complained on Twitter, and the folks at Delta Airlines have reached out to them, and it's because of these social or e-commerce people who are part of the marketing team. Now I want to go into the concept of a brand to be sure that we're all clear on what a brand is and why it's so important for organizations. So it's a name, it's a term, it's a design or a symbol or other feature that may distinguish your product or your service from your competitor. It reflects the personality of the company, and most importantly, it is your promise. It is your promise, and I always use this very simple example. If I have an organization and my brand is happy, like I want people to be happy when they experience my organization. And so the question is, when you come to my organization for whatever the service is, did that experience occur to you? Did you have that same experience? Did we keep our promise to you? Our goal is to make sure that when you interface with us, whether it's calling us, coming in, going to our website, we're going to make you smile. All right? That's the promise. And so you want people to have that experience. And when you have a brand like that or a promise, and if you have a lot of people who have an experience that's inconsistent with that, that's a problem. All right? You don't want a gap like that. You want consistency. So I'll take you through some examples in just a moment. So brand equity. So we're talking about awareness. Do people know who you are, your tagline, your logo? And how do they associate it? And how's it perceived when we think about quality? So think about an iPhone, for example. You all may have your different, I'm sure you're going to have different perspectives about that. But, a lot of folks like iPhones, right? And they perceive that there's some standard that's associated with having an iPhone or a Mac, right? And then brand loyalty. I know some people, they only want Macs and iPhones. They don't want any other type of device, all right? So that's brand loyalty. So I have a video that speaks to this, and I want us to watch this together. Well, I thought I had it queued up here. Sorry, guys. Okay, here we go.
Columbia is the home of world-renowned academics. As an undergraduate,
Thanks, Professor, for that detailed explanation. Hello, students. Have you any questions regarding marketing terms?
Professor Siegfried, can you explain what brand equity means?
Okay, Sandra. Brand equity is the value of a brand based on the extent to which it has high brand loyalty, name awareness, perceived quality, strong brand association, and other assets such as patents, trademarks, and channel relationships.
Professor, can you give me an example of brand equity?
A brand with a very high brand equity is a very valuable asset. Brand valuation is the process of estimating the total financial value of the brand. Measuring such value is difficult. However, the brand value of Coca-Cola is estimated to be almost $67 billion, and IBM and Microsoft are valued at $59 billion.
Professor, would a high brand value provide a company with a competitive advantage?
Sure, Sandra. A powerful brand enjoys a high level of consumer awareness and loyalty. Because consumers expect stores to carry the brand, the company can more easily launch line and brand extensions. For example, Coca-Cola is well known to introduce new varieties such as vanilla Coke and Coke with lime. A powerful brand offers the company some defense against fierce price competition. Above all, a powerful brand forms the basis for building strong and profitable customer relationships.
Thanks, Professor, for that detailed explanation.
So I know the video is kind of creepy, but I like it because it speaks to the power of the brand, and it provides you with a little more perspective about what it is. So brand valuation is really important, and that is, when you can attach a dollar amount to a brand, and I think they gave the example of Coca-Cola, perfect example. There's certain, when you have a certain brand, there's a loyalty that comes with that, and if you introduce that, well, I'll give you an example in just a second. All right, so brand awareness. You can look at these icons here, and most of them you should be able to name the company that they are associated with. So obviously the Golden Arch, right? I think every American knows this, right? And people all over the world actually know this. This has a very strong valuation, right? You can really quantify this in a way because people know the Golden Arch, right? And so just go through this yourself. I'm not going to ask, Marriott and Shell and Nike and Playboy, and I think that's, oh God, Pepsi Cola. And then I don't know what this is. All right, but you do. Taco Bell's down here, Audi, Microsoft, and so forth. All right, Apple. There's a quiz that you can take. It's pretty fun. I'm not going to go through this right now, but I think there's about 12 examples. And remember when we're talking about a brand, it could be a visual, meaning like there's an icon. It could be audio, like you'll hear a tone or some type of quote, and you associate a brand with it. That's also part of brand loyalty. Do this on your own. It doesn't take much time, and it's lots of fun. All right. I love Southwest Airlines because it's a perfect example to show how an organization does a really good job, living its brand. And so you'll see here, and I want you to focus on fun-loving attitude. One thing about Southwest, they make it a lot of fun on that airline. I'll never forget when I flew Southwest for the very first time. I didn't understand why they didn't give me a seat number on my boarding pass. It just wasn't there. And I went to the lady and I said, I don't know where I'm supposed to sit. Can you help me? And she said, oh, you just stand in line. And I said, and then what? She said, just stand in line and you just get you take whatever seat's available. And I was so confused by that. I said, well, what if I was flying first class? She's like, this is Southwest, baby. There is no such thing as first class. Well, we're all first class. That's what she said. And I just really, that stuck in me. And then I learned more about Southwest Airlines and what's important to them. And this is it. They're lots of fun. I love the video. Some of you may have seen it, but let me show it to you. It's hilarious. It's this gentleman who he raps. Okay, here we go. It's pretty cool.
Good evening, folks. Welcome aboard Southwest Airlines Flight 372, service to Oklahoma City. Those of you that have flown us before know that we do things a little bit differently here on Southwest. Some of us tell jokes, some of us sing, some of us just stand there and look beautiful. I, unfortunately, can do none of those. So here's the one thing that I do know how to do. We're going to shake things up a little bit. I need a little audience participation. Otherwise, this is not going to go over well at all. So here's what I need, especially you guys in the front, because you know what's coming. All right, I need a beat. All right. All I need you to do is stomp and clap, and I'm going to do the rest because I've had 5 flights today, and I just cannot do the regular boring announcement again. Otherwise, I'm going to put myself to sleep. So, you guys with me? All right. So give me a stomp, clap, stomp, clap. Come on, stomp, clap, stomp, clap. Stay on beat there. There you go. Keep that going. This is Flight 372 on SWA. The flight attendants on board serving you today. Teresa in the middle, David in the back. My name is David, and I'm here to tell you that shortly after takeoff, first things first, there's soft drinks and coffee to quench your thirst. But if you want another kind of drink, then just holler. Alcoholic beverages will be $4. If a Monster energy drink is your plan, that'll be $3, and you get the whole can. We won't take your cash, you gotta pay with plastic. If you have a coupon, then that's fantastic. We know you're ready to get to new places. Open up the bins, put away your suitcases. Carry on items, go under the seat in front of you, so none of you have things by your feet. If you have a seat on the road with the exit, we're going to talk to you, so you might as well expect it. You got to help us evacuate in case we need you. If you don't want to, then we're going to reseat you. Before we leave, our advice is put away your electronic devices. Fasten your seatbelt, then put your trays up. Press the button to make the seat back raise up. Sit back, relax, have a good time. It's almost time to go, so I'm done with the ride. Thank you for the fact that I wasn't ignored. This is Southwest Airlines. Welcome aboard.
So that's a perfect example of what we're talking about. It's like, you know, this fun-loving environment, this culture that they are working so hard to instill. You have that experience when you fly Southwest. And so that's keeping in line with the brand and delivering on your promise. And I can't say how important that is when you're trying to have a loyal customer base, right? If you're promising something, it needs to be consistent every time. So think about Starbucks, right? They have it down to a science. You go to any Starbucks and you get a similar experience, right? You don't have a lot of variation. And that's what's important. You want consistency. And when you have that and people become used to that, they stick with you, all right? So let me give you an example of MedStar, what we did a couple of years ago. We were going through this major brand. We wanted to take some time to really think about our brand and confirm it or make some changes. And we did some market research to see how the community perceives the system. So if you don't know MedStar, MedStar is a healthcare system, right? It's 10 hospitals. It has ambulatory care practices, primary care practices, medical business units. I mean, there's a whole lot that MedStar does, all right? But we wanted to see how the community perceived us as a healthcare system. And we wanted to uncover positive perceptions, like what do people think about us in a good way? How are we perceived? And so we did market research, and what we found was that the community did not perceive MedStar as a system. And we also learned that the community in general was unclear about the array of services that are offered in the system. We also learned that the community associated us with being a knowledgeable healthcare organization and a compassionate healthcare provider. And so this was done in the communities of all 10 of MedStar hospitals, right? And this is what we found, right? And so what we wanted to do was develop a series of media ads to unveil a new tagline and promote MedStar as a system of care based on what we learned through this process. And I can share with you right now, I should have had this queued up, guys. I really apologize for this. You can see here the new tagline that we came up with. It is knowledge and compassion focused on you, because that's what the community told us. They perceived that about us, being a knowledgeable institution and one that's very compassionate. And the focused on you, we learned that from the community, but it was also very important to us because as we were thinking about our strategy, we wanted to be sure that when people would come to our organizations, they would have a very personalized experience. Again, one that's focused on them. And so as a result, we launched a series of ads or commercials. And I have one here that I'm going to share with you.
What if there were a place where every time you got sick or injured, all the best doctors would team up to give you the most specialized care? What if every time you needed treatment, 27,000 medical professionals in 9 great hospitals and more than 100 community locations all became one? And what if all of this was found right in your neighborhood? Maybe some people would call a system like that unrealistic. But in this region, we call it MedStar Health.
Okay, so what we were trying to get across in this particular, in these ads was one, that we are we are a system of care, right? 2, that we are accessible. And then 3, that our care is very focused on the individual. That was really important to us. And so we launched, I think there was about 5 different commercials depending on the target community, because MedStar hospitals are in Baltimore. They are in Montgomery County, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, in St. Mary's County, and Prince George's County. So we had different videos depending on the market. And so that was what we did. So this is a perfect example of how you do market research to inform your strategy, right? And also to deploy a marketing campaign that focuses on price, product, place, and promotion in a way that resonates to your consumers. So now I want to go into strategic and target marketing. So, you can think about this as like an upside down triangle, right? So when you're talking about mass marketing, I'm just going to use zip code 20019 as an example. This is like everybody in that zip code. So that's mass marketing. If you had a product or service that you were trying to reach for everyone in that zip code, you'd stop there, right? You would stop at just making sure that you have customized some type of campaign that reaches everyone in 20019. But let's say that your product or service, it's only for married couples in zip codes 20019. So you see how we're becoming more granular in our approach. And so that's a whole different marketing strategy, right? So you're going to have to learn about married couples in 20019, how to access them, where they shop, what are their needs, right? And how does your product or service address or meet their needs? And then micro marketing was getting even more granular. Well, we really need to see married couples with children in zip code 20019. Again, that's going to be a different type of approach when it comes to developing some type of marketing campaign. It's also important that you understand the difference between demographics and psychographics. Demographics are what we all are familiar with, right? It's like age, gender, race, location, employment status. But psychographics are more based on a person's their values and their attitudes and what they're interested in and their lifestyle. Are they physically active people? Are they sedentary people? Depending on the product, right, that you're trying, or the target that you're trying to reach. What's their personality, right? So you need to know those things. I'll take you through an example in just a moment. So you can have all the stuff on the left, all the demographics, But if I am like Fitbits, let's take that for example. Let's say we're trying to advertise Fitbits. Well, you're obviously going to look for people who are very physically active or who are interested in being more physically active, people who may have this desire to manage their health in a different type of way and track, physical activity. That's a certain type of person. That's a profile, right? So you're going to want to attract those people or get to those people. So I'll ask you now, what would you do? Where would you go? And that's a question that you can answer on your own. I'm not going to take time to do that. But that's what psychographics is all about. It's knowing your population, the population that you're targeting, knowing them really, really well, and reaching them in their natural zones or natural habitats. I like this psychographic segmentation. This was unveiled a couple years ago by some researchers who looked at patients and patient attitudes, and they were able to take a typical patient, well, just about any patient, and put them into one of 5 categories. And you can see that they say that majority of the patient population are willful endurers. So direction takers, these are the people like my grandmother and my mother. They go to the doctor, they do what the doctor tells them to do, right? They follow the doctor's orders, all right? Direction takers. Balance seekers, they are dedicated to their health and wellness, but don't pay as much attention as the direction takers when it comes to what doctors tell them. They like to come up with their own conclusions about what success looks like after seeking information on treatment via the internet as well as family and friends. So down here you see the approach. Like if you are leading a practice and you have a balance seeker that you're dealing with, here's how you deal with those folks, all right? So they're saying here, present them with options and choices while stressing the consequences of each one. The willful endurer, these are the people who live for the here and now, and they seize the moment, right? They put current pleasures over future health. They're resistant to changing habits, and they only visit the doctor when they must. These are tough groups to deal with. They need simple steps, and they value immediate gratification. So they're saying this is the majority of the population. Ask yourself, where do you fit as we go through these? Priority jugglers are people who are so busy with other responsibilities that they invest less in health and wellness, but are proactive about the health of their loved ones. I think about mothers, for example. I think about the women in my family. They bend over backwards to make sure that their kids are, receive their primary care checkups and so forth, and they're so overwhelmed that they put their health on the back burner. When you're dealing with a priority juggler, the experts say appeal to their sense of duty and responsibility by pointing out that others must depend on their health. And since others are depending on their health, it's so important that they take care of themselves. And self-achievers, 24%, the most proactive about health and wellness, but are more likely than balance seekers to prioritize the doctor's advice. They're very task-oriented. They'll stay on top of their health issues, and they're willing to tackle challenges when they're given measurable goals. When you're dealing with a self-achiever, they say provide health education and tasks along with baseline measures and tracking tools to reinforce their progress. So without a doubt, when I read this the first time, I'm all the way on the right side. I'm a self-achiever. I value what my doctor tells me, but I really think that I have personal responsibility to stay on top of my health and my health issues. And, sometimes I'll go to my doctor and I'm questioning him and I'm giving him advice on how to treat me. And he'll say, you know what? I don't even think you need me. Why don't you do this by yourself? And we always laugh because when I go to his office, it's not going to be a 20-minute visit. We're going to sit down and we're going to talk for about an hour. And he knows that about me. I'm very, very on top of my health. Okay. So, it's something to think about. Just, when we think about psychographic segmentation, I'll give you this as an example so you can understand that it's important for us to know our people and their values and characteristics or their typical profile so that we can meet them where they are. That's what's most important. We're meeting people where they are. We're giving them a very customized experience. And when you can do that, it fosters this culture that, that's amenable to patients being more loyal to your organization or customers being more loyal to you. This image here, I've given it to you again as a framework for thinking about how to reach that sweet spot, which is your target market. So this, think about it from a large scale. So let's say we're talking about the state of Maryland, right? That's your total market. And then you may, in one of my classes, we talked about, let's say we're launching a service for, what's it called? Let's say you have a concierge medical practice and you're doing facelifts, right? And you're trying to develop a marketing campaign for women that are most likely to get a facelift in the state of Maryland, right? So you're talking about women, right? So your demographic population is women, and you're probably going to look for women who have high incomes, right? So you need to start thinking about where are they located, right? Let's say it's a statewide service, so we're going to say the state of Maryland, right? And then psychographic segmentation speaks to, we're talking about rich women who have money, and they have the resources to pay for this. Where can you find them? What's the characteristic of a wealthy woman who's most likely to be receptive to some type of facelift? So you'll ask yourself, what are the attitudes, interests, and lifestyles, so that you can find them, and when you do find them, you can relate to them, right? And then what about their behaviors? What do they enjoy doing? And I'm not going to go into that because I don't want anyone to get offended. But think about behaviorally, where are you most likely to find wealthy women in the state of Maryland who may be interested in facelift procedure? And then target market, that's the sweet spot, right? So just something to think through as you think about identifying your target market and market segmentation. You'll hear about MSAs. These are metropolitan statistical areas. When we launched our commercials, we focus on the metropolitan statistical area of the Washington, Baltimore, Northern region. And so everyone within this region was able to see our commercials. And I think we did them on ABC in the mornings, and then we did some afternoon we had some afternoon slots as well. But MSAs are designated by the federal government as a means of standardizing different boundaries of cities and urban areas. And so depending on the type of organization you have, this may be your MSA. So you can focus on the geography when you have some type of campaign or you're trying to promote your service. That's just one example. You can also look at census tracts, right? And these are also designated by the federal government. They're small statistical subdivisions that are theoretically homogeneous. And I say that theoretically because, things are changing so fast in our world. But that was the goal when census tracts were created. And they are ideally comprised of 1,500 to 8,000 residents. And so when we say theoretically homogeneous, it's people who live in these census tracts have some similar characteristics or qualities or demographics. And so that might help you when you're trying to reach that population. Strategic partnerships. Think about Starbucks and Target. And, when you go into a Target, you'll see a Starbucks shop, right? Well, why do you think that happened? Do you think they just said, why don't we put Starbucks in Target? Oh, no. It was a much more evidence-based process, right? And so both companies did a lot of research, and they understood the psychographics of their consumer base. And they recognized that people who shop at Target are more likely to drink Starbucks and vice versa, all right? And so they decided, after much planning, that they would embark upon this partnership. And it works, right? It works. You see Starbucks in just about every Target, and it's providing the consumer base with a much more pleasant experience, because they're able to get Starbucks while they're shopping, or they're able to get Starbucks when they're leaving the store. So strategic partnerships are really important, but I give this example to speak to the whole psychographic point, right? It's like you have to know the behaviors, the desires, and the wants of your particular client base or community or population that you're targeting. And this is a perfect example. Another example I want to share with you is MedStar's partnership with Uber. Obviously, Uber wants to do really well and put more cars on the streets, right? And then MedStar wants to make sure that its patients have access to transportation. This is especially important with health reform and how it's, we want to be sure that our patients can access us and that transportation is not a barrier. And door-to-door service is really important, especially for patients who have, some really high acuity illnesses or chronic disease conditions. For example, I think about cancer. When I was working on my dissertation, I interviewed some patients who were on chemotherapy, and they would always say, people think we can just take the metro, and they say, take metro, take public transportation. But when these patients are going through chemotherapy, they don't want to be, then they don't need to be on public transportation. I mean, their immune systems are very vulnerable, and they just feel really bad. And so door-to-door service is really important for this particular population. And so MedStar wanted to find new ways to make sure that its patients had access to door-to-door transportation services, and has recently partnered with Uber. Again, strategic partnership. You don't just say, let's partner. You have to get to know each organization. So the CEO met with the CEO of Uber, and they really talked about a shared vision and the philosophy, their values, to make sure that it would be a good marriage. All right. There's a whole class that we can take on strategic partnerships, but I just want to give you an overview of how important strategic partnerships are, particularly when it comes to marketing, right, and planning. Quality ratings, I'm not going to spend a lot of time speaking to this, but in healthcare, you have lots of drivers now that are, I captioned this here as the 5 major drivers of healthcare transparency. Because of information being more transparent, the consumer or the patient has access to a lot of information that he or she did not have years and years ago. And so that has an impact on marketing, right? It has an impact on, how the community perceives us. And we don't always have a lot of control over that. And so it's important for us to recognize that. And so these are just 5 different drivers. I'm mainly talking about hospitals here and health systems. And then you'll see who gets rated. I mean, we have all types of organizations that are rating us as healthcare providers. The Joint Commission, we have patient experience, the HCAHPS scores, physician peer reviews. I mean, there are websites you can go to read about different physicians and how they've been rated. And then medical errors and patient safety issues, your financial strength and performance. This information is transparent now. And again, people can access it. So the question is, if you're a marketing expert, how do you address that? And that's really important given the world that we live in now. Pros and cons of current quality measures. Well, the good thing about all of this information being transparent is that it forces us to do better as an industry, which is a wonderful thing. Poor performers are called out. It's requiring us to create new and better standards. We have consumers who are more educated and empowered when they go into their provider. They ask specific questions. It's driving technology and it's also lowering the cost of healthcare. These are some of the pros. But the cons are, how do you define quality, right? And for different people, it means different things. And so that's one issue. Some of the measures may be a little dated when they're available. I've seen some surveys, they'll come out today, but the data were actually collected 2 or 3 years ago. So that's something to be on the lookout for when you're reading some of these quality ratings. And sometimes it allows for opportunistic marketing based on what we're seeing in the media. And then consumers can be very confused by all of the information. There's just so much to process and so much to digest. And, what's valid, what's not valid, what's reliable and what's not reliable. And so consumers have a lot that they have to process and deal with. And that is one of the cons associated with all of this information that's now publicly available. And then you'll see here, these are, again, are some of the organizations that are rating healthcare organizations: Thomson Reuters, Consumer Reports, U.S. News and World Report, Standard & Poor's. You learned about Standard & Poor's last week. And then the National Commission for Quality Assurance, which rates insurance plans to make sure that they are dotting their I's and crossing their T's and improving the health of the patients that they are insuring, or the individuals that they are insuring. Again, these folks are all providing ratings, and you can go to any one of these websites. You can learn about different organizations. You can learn about physicians. You can learn about insurance plans and how they're doing in the marketplace. Groups providing healthcare ratings and data. Again, I think this is pretty much a rehash of the other 2 slides. Marketing quality data is more interactive. So this particular slide here speaks to hospital death rates. And I always caution people when they look for hospital death rates that they are not misled by these data, all right? So what this shows you is the death rates for the hospitals in Washington, D.C. Now, sometimes when you look at death rates, if it's a hospital that's providing care to a highly vulnerable community, or you have a lot of patients who are just really, really sick, they probably will have a higher death rate. We shouldn't mistake that and associate that with quality, okay? So if we really want to be fair, we have to put everybody on the same page. And that's not the case, unfortunately. You have some hospitals that are just serving a higher percentage or population of people who are very vulnerable and just don't have the education or the resources to do what needs to be done to stay healthy. And so those hospitals may have a higher death rate. So you have to just, peel back the layers of the onion and really understand, why some organizations have higher death rates than others. Don't just use this as your data like this as your main resource for determining if it's a good hospital or not. So here's a case study for you. You are a marketing and a public relations professional, and I'm asking you, what would you do in this particular circumstance? Because this is what a marketing team has to deal with, particularly a public relations person. So here's the situation here. It's a multi-hospital system in a competitive metro environment. The system is branded and has this, this perception of being clinically excellent. It heavily promotes its third-party quality ratings and customer service excellence. So they've obviously done really, really well with that. And, you can go to whoever this third party is, and you'll see that this hospital has done really, really well. But unfortunately, 17 babies were given an overdose of a blood thinner, and several of those babies died. CNN picks it up, and it's on the news, right? And then at the same time, the website currently says the hospital is big on babies and is recognized as one of the nation's top hospitals for clinical excellence. So the question is, what would you do if you were a marketing or a PR person? How would you address this issue? This is what these professionals have to deal with. It's a very, very unfortunate circumstance. and it must be dealt with very carefully, right? So take some time, think about it. What would you do? Now, I'll tell you, when things like this happen, it's important for the hospital to admit that, you know, that it's conducting an investigation, and it's committed to, you know, having all the resources that are necessary to have a very thorough investigation. And then there's going to be some, there's going to be a strategy to ensure that this doesn't ever happen again. And it's just important to be transparent, because we know that when you're not transparent, or if, you know, let's say that this hospital chooses not to speak directly with the families and they decide to just let the attorneys speak to them, that's not good, right? It's important to just be real, take responsibility, apologize, right? Apologize, don't be defensive. And then, you know, you have to craft some type of language for the public. Now, as far as what would you do about the website? You know, that's totally, you know, I've seen, it just depends. There's no right or wrong answer here. But I want you to think about it. If you were in this position, would you leave the website alone? Would you take the Big on Babies down? Would you remove the language about it being the nation's top hospital for clinical excellence? That's totally up to you. I just want you to think about it. I think the last slide that I have here is about the product life cycle, because we can't talk about marketing without addressing the product life cycle and what that actually is. And so the life cycle is when you take some product to market, you know, you have different stages: the introductory stage, the growth stage, the maturity stage, and the stage of decline. So, and then there's a way that you deal with it depending on where it is. There's a way that the marketing team has to approach the product based on where it is within the 4 cycles. So let's say that you're introducing some new technology. Well, let's use these. All right, let's go through this as an example. Cell phones. Where are cell phones in the 4 basic life stages? Do you think that we are introductory stage? Do you think we're in the growth stage, maturity, or the decline? Right. So I would argue that cell phones, we're in the maturity. Just about everybody has a cell phone, right? But about 20 years ago, we were in the introductory stage. But now we're here, right? And so you can think about it, when the marketing, you know, within the context of the audience that you're dealing with, the market, the sales, competition, the business focus, and the design focus. Let's go to smart homes here. Well, let's do Facebook. Facebook, where are we with Facebook? Some of you would say probably maturity as well, right? Just about everybody has a Facebook account. But again, you can look at different generations, and you'll find some trends there, right? If I'm looking at people who are 65 and older, we'll probably see a different distribution. Smart homes. These are the homes that you can turn on your lights with your cell phone. You can close your garage door with your cell phone. I would argue that we are in the introductory stage here, where, you know, a lot of folks, you know, there's just a few folks who are doing this. And so these are early adopters, right? And it's a very small segment of the population. Sales are low, competition's low, there's not a lot of people in the business. Business focus for this particular population is awareness, just making sure people are aware that these services exist. Design focus is tuning, meaning that you're still trying to get it right in a way that people can relate and understand how this will be meaningful for them in their lives. So that's how you would approach this. If you had a product that was brand new, you know, and, you know, you're testing it, right? You're in testing mode here with the goal that it'll successfully matriculate through these stages at some point. Electric vehicles, I would say we're in the growth stage here. Again, you may have a different argument, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong. Virtual visits, here I'm speaking about, you know, seeing your doctor through your computer at home, right? Virtual visits, and then blood pressure tracking devices. This is like medical management at home, where you actually put a blood cuff on, attach the cord to your USB port, and upload your blood pressure through your computer so that your doctor has immediate access to it. And we're still here for that. So again, you could take any product. It doesn't have to be specific to healthcare. This is marketing 101. If you're taking any type of business course, you're gonna hear the four basic stages of the life cycle. And it's important that you understand, as a marketing person, what type of orientation might you have if you're dealing with growth or maturity or decline, right? So if it's declining, you're trying to still market to these people. These are laggards, right? They're like my mother, right? My mother just got a cell phone like 6 months ago. So that's a certain profile, right? You can say a lot about people and you can predict a lot about purchasing behaviors and based on, where people are when it comes to things like this. Okay, so I think that's it for now. No deliverable this week. It's my expectation is that you are working on your final projects. If you have specific questions, please contact me. I've given you examples of what your final project should look like, and I hope that you have a good week.